In this episode of The Leadership Hustle, we'll talk about the transformational power of coaching. Hello, and welcome to The Leadership Hustle for executives whose companies are growing fast and need leaders who are ready. So welcome back to the Leadership Hustle podcast. I'm Andrea Fredrickson, and I am joined with Michelle.
Hello.
Joined by Michelle? With Michelle? I don't know. Anyway,
I'm Michelle's here. Whatever you want to call it.
We're good. Today, we are going to discuss a little bit about coaching. And so we're going to do a couple of episodes here in a row about coaching, but let's get started with this topic. And Michelle, Ravella, we do a lot of coaching, so we kind of have a belief about coaching. But so what do you think our belief about coaching is? I mean, I don't know that we've ever had this face-to-face conversation and said, what do we believe?
Well,
right?
and okay, I'm going to rephrase it. What do I believe?
Okay.
Which does... obviously that my beliefs are influenced by our conversations and
we've been hanging around together for 19 years, so we may have some.
I'm sure there's a little crossover here
right.
and there. But when when I think of coaching, I truly believe it's the most valuable tool for growth. Because we do a lot of group sessions, right? And so forth. But which I think is extremely valuable as well. But when you get into then that next level of let's take this information we've talked about in a group and let's talk about this one-on-one and what are you thinking and what's your belief about it? What's your barriers? I mean, it's because it's to me, the coaching piece is a huge piece of that aha moment. It's where whether it was through something they read or other conversations or they bring a problem, it's them having I hadn't thought about it this way, or challenging their belief system because, they're hitting a barrier or they're just not getting the results they want, but they have blind spots. And so that coaching where you can really hone in on having the one-on-one conversation is where you can ask them some questions that cause them to think differently. Now, they may not always like that,
right?
But it causes them to think differently, and then it opens up for some dialogue of what can we learn, what can we do a little differently, and or what's our barrier, which is those blind spots as well. Because if we don't first address our belief system, it's always going to be a barrier there because that starts that whole phase of how we're going to interact and receive information. What do I believe about you versus it's really inward in that case.
Okay.
So yeah, I know I just kind of went a lot of directions there, but what? So you sum it up, I guess. Just kind of what do you think? Like when you think about why coach?
So coaching, there's so many different types, which is a whole nother episode that we're going to address that topic. But coaching is, in my mind, it's giving people information so that they can learn and grow and develop. And then ultimately what they're trying to do is improve, whatever that is. And part of the coaching isn't only getting people to be curious and to consider things, but I think it's also the willingness to accept the perspective of someone else. I'm not saying you have to believe all the perspectives. I'm not saying that you have to take everything 100% as it is delivered. What I think is that coaching is giving people information, giving people the opportunity to think about or consider something that is going to help them be a better version of themselves. And so feedback is a huge part of coaching, but it's equally as important as the thinking about something, the considering, have we thought about, what do you think about something? And so those are the kinds of things that we talk about from a coaching perspective. So, the whole issue though about coaching is there's so many reasons why people don't coach. So let me give you an example of something that happened recently. We had a person that I was coaching, and this person was going through a series or a scenario of situations, and the employee brought them a situation, and I asked this executive, I said, "What'd you do?" I said, "Well, I coached them." I'm like, "What do you mean you coached them?"
What does that mean exactly?
Like I coached them. I said, "Tell me the story. Like what did you do, or what did you, like, give me the word for word. Like, what did you do? Well, they asked me a question. I asked them, what did they do already? I'm like, okay, that's a good start.
Yeah.
And then what? Well, I told them what to do. I'm like, that's telling.
Yes,
That's just telling you where to start with an answer.
Yeah, it was a great opener.
Right,
That's great. What have you done so far?
And so I was like, is that coaching or is that telling? And so, people have lots of definitions about what coaching is. Can they ultimately improve from that? Maybe, right? They're basically asking you a question, you give them an answer, they go scurry off and they go to do the thing, right? I think there's more to it than that. And
yeah, because I think there could be a component of teaching in there, but I think it all depends on when you tell, have they had other experiences that were similar to this? Have we gone through something like this? Because if it's something that has never hit anyone, like we've never discussed or worked through or anything like that, there is some opportunity to, have you thought about this, kind of conversation that bordering the telling, the teaching.
We call that a directive disguised as a question.
But if it's something that they should have some knowledge or experience around, that's where the telling isn't as effective. You're conditioning them just to come to you all the time,
right,
to get the answer. And
so let's step back. Why do people not really coach? Because I think that, part of this episode is the discussion of, we need to give people feedback, but ultimately, why do we need to coach versus just answer the question, just tell people? Why do people not do that, though?
Well, I know I hear people say they don't coach, or they don't say they don't coach, but they say it takes too long. I know the answer better than they do.
We don't have time.
We don't. We don't have time.
I'm busy.
Yes. It's quicker. I'm just going to give them the answer, and then, but they also have the belief that if they give them the answer, that person will know how to use it next time. And that's the downfall, is because then it's like, okay, well, how often are people coming to you with questions? And when you ask that question, and if they actually do a study to kind of track it, they find, oh gosh, people are constantly asking me questions. And it's because you create that environment, you're giving them the answer all the time. They don't think on their own, you think for them.
Right.
But they have all these, these beliefs that it's just faster. I know more than they do. They don't have these experiences. Even a person who's new in an organization, people will assume because they're new in an organization, they don't know anything. And it's like, you hired them for reasons that they add value.
Right.
That you hired them because you believe they bring some information, some knowledge and some experiences. So when you get them in there, then you treat them like they're a little kid and they don't have any knowledge. And it's like, no, you got to find out what they think, what ideas do they have? And they quickly go to that mindset that, well, they're new, they don't know. Or they've only been here a couple years. You don't know what you don't know. And by giving them answers, you now still don't know what they know.
Right.
So
one of the things that I hear people talk about is they think they're coaching. So we have leaders who think they're coaching simply by responding to questions by giving an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I get that. There's a group of folks, and I remember having this conversation with my dad. I would ask my dad a question, and he would start facilitating an answer from me, and I get the fact that's like,
annoying.
Just tell me the flippin' answer.
Yes.
I just need to know, yes or no, right or left, blue or red, whatever. Like, just give me an answer, right? And he would laugh when I do that. So I get that there is a place to give just an answer because somebody asked you a question.
Yes.
We want people, though, in certain circumstances, to own more of the information. If somebody's asking me a question, or if I've been asked a question and I really don't have an opinion, or it's not really important, the answer that I give, I need to be able to say, this is yours. You own this. Is there something about this question that you can't get the information from, or you're really struggling with, or is it simply you need the permission for something? Because you have the permission, whatever the answer is. So, just what is that? And that's the coaching part
Correct.
that is happening. But people just blurt out an answer and they think that they're coaching. I'm like, nope, that's blurting out an answer.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Well, I find helpful too when you bring on new employees. One, if you just start always asking them questions, because the type of question we ask can sometimes feel, I might feel I have to defend myself. It might not feel, you may have good intentions in wanting to help me learn,
right?
But the way you ask the questions might feel like you're interrogating, like you're questioning my judgment, like you don't believe in me or you don't trust me or whatever, right? So one, I think asking open-ended questions and putting our intentions up front. I want to help you, or I want you to own this. This is something you can own. So let's talk a little more about this. I've got some questions.
Sure.
And then go into some of those questions can help that person feel safer. But also when you first bring someone in and you're working with them, I think it's helpful to kind of create a little bit of, okay, when things are going on and you have questions, three things. Do you just want me to listen and you just want to think out loud and bounce things, but you really don't want my opinion or anything. You just want to think or just blow off steam. Do you want me to challenge you and ask you questions for learning purposes?
Poke holes in something.
Yeah, poke holes in something. Or are you at a breaking point this very moment that, whatever you want to call it, but that's kind of what it is, that you just need the damn answer. Right. And so at this moment, just give me the damn answer and that will help you then get your reset, maybe calm your emotions a little bit. And that very well could be a follow-up conversation, though. It's not going to end here with me just giving you that answer. It will end at the moment, but maybe at our one-on-one or whatever, we're going to re-talk about it so we can help ensure there's going to be a little more gaining of understanding, building that knowledge, right?
Well, sometimes it's just a resource they need.
Yeah.
It isn't even us that needs to answer the question. It is, so-and-so has better information than I do about this. Here is a website or here is another resource that you could use to help you solve this because I'm no different in the expectations or the understanding of this than you are. Something that you said about asking these questions, I want to bring up as it relates to some of the myths of coaching. So I'm a believer, so this is an opinion. I want you to understand that this is an opinion, that in order for us to coach, that we have to ask questions. So if you've listened to some of the other episodes of our podcast, you've heard us say it's not just about the questions for the coaching, because like you said, some questions lead to interrogation or a feeling of interrogation, and that's a lot of the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So even using the word why, if someone asks you a question using, why did you do that? You feel like you have to defend yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Your brain starts going into, I got to protect, fight or flight.
Right.
And you shut down.
But if I'm asking the question, why did you do that? I'm not really asking the judgment question. I'm curious because I don't understand. But using the word why already sets up that domino effect. And so if you choose to ask questions, that's fine. Open-ended questions are good. We do a lot of promoting of statements that lead to bigger answers. So tell me more about the process you used. Give me an example of how that would work if we chose to implement X.
Yes.
Explain the process that you have envisioned in this.
Yes.
Explain what you've done already. Some of those kinds of statements are much more conducive to discussion and dialogue as opposed to defending what's going on.
Yes. And I always like to even add, though, just it's that intention up front to help me understand, or I want to really kind of understand your perspective on this process and those steps that you've taken or that you think, that you kind of are planning on taking. Walk me through that. So now I've told them up front, because I want to help, right? I want to help. So and I don't want to make assumptions. So walk me through what those steps might look like so we can kind of talk about it and work through that. But having that intention, why are you asking those questions, also helps bring down that fear.
Right.
So because a lot of times we just go into the question and that person doesn't know why you're asking it. But of course, because it goes back to we view ourselves through our intentions, they view us through our actions. So they miss that important piece. It's our intention.
So, coaching.
Yes.
Why why should people be coached versus just given an answer? Like, what's the benefit of coaching? And we're talking about manager leader to employee, right?
Yeah.
What's the reason? What's the compelling case for it?
Well, again, opinion, but in my belief, I believe it causes a person to, have to pause and think and process and kind of go back through what do they know, what do they not know, and really put some thoughts together.
Right.
It feels like when working with organizations, so many people are, and we find ourselves as well, you're just like, you're on that gerbil wheel, just going, right? And you're not really learning, you're not really growing, because you're just knocking shit out. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting better as an individual or as a leader in the organization either, or a leader, no matter what your title is. But it causes people to have to pause for a moment. It causes them to have to slow down, and it causes them to have to think.
Okay.
I also believe that, there is some research on people do things for their own reasons, not yours.
Right.
So getting into that science, behind our brain, that when you ask those questions, you're causing them to pause, slow down and think, but then also work through a solution. That solution's now more their idea. So now you've that level, people always say when we're chatting with them, why were they interested in working with us? Well, we need our people to be accountable. And I think you just need your people to have more ownership. And there's a flip in the accountability and ownership, right? Mm-hmm. They really are the same to a certain degree, but how do you help people gain or believe they have ownership? And part of that is through putting it back on them to figure it out themselves.
Right.
Because now it's their idea. They don't want their idea to fail.
Right.
So, yeah.
So looking at, this is the day-to-day coaching. These are the in the moment, just in time.
Which are perfect.
People need to have coaching opportunities. There's also, having coaching from the outside. And this isn't a commercial for that. This is simply, people believe that coaching from the outside is expensive. And with regard to coaching from the outside, regardless to price, right? This is more of sometimes you need somebody from the outside who's not emotionally involved with any kind of scenario, because maybe the employee doesn't understand the impact that they're having on other people, and they need some coaching, they need some feedback, they need some perspective where the coach doesn't have a dog in the hunt. It's simply, I'm here to provide you this information. Now let's talk through, discover things that we can, one, do you believe it? All those kinds of things. But you have to get feedback and be coached by someone to move things forward. Managers and leaders can do those things, but the outside perspective can sometimes give you that, I'm doing it because I have somebody who's supporting me, not because I'm going to be fired or promoted, or they're going to think more or less of me because of the things I'm going to share about my emotions and my feelings and my struggles and my heartaches that come along with that.
Because people are going to protect themselves, and if I share with you how I'm feeling, that can maybe impact my future. That might prevent you from promoting me or looking, at me for a promotion. So I definitely agree that outside perspective, there is a bit of there's a lot of actually where it's people just feel safer.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's confidential.
Yeah, and a manager might say, well, my employees feel safe around me. We trust each other, and you probably do. I'm sure you do trust each other, and I'm sure those things but there is still something there. You're controlling their future to a certain degree, right? And so that kind of hangs over their thought process. I think the other thing that is really valuable from that outside perspective is because we're not in it, we don't see the day-to-day, we don't experience what they experience, it allows us to ask more really honest, curious questions that a manager may make a lot of assumptions off of.
Right.
Because they're in it, right? Because we're not in it, I don't know what they do. I don't understand the process. So I can ask a question, well, walk me through what's your current process like that? And what's working, what's not? What
did you say? How did you say it?
And then how they said it, right? So just tell me how you said that. Oh, okay, I can now give them feedback on, well, I could see how that could be perceived in a couple different ways. One could be this and this. Obviously, I'm not the receiver in that case, but had you thought about, what do you think about do you think they could have received it as in a negative tone or whatever, right? And because when you're hearing it with with not having that baggage, it allows you to give them other perspectives. I do believe on that coaching side, I believe it's important that whoever is that person's coach, that they trust them.
It has to be a good match.
Yeah, it has to be a good match, because if they don't believe that person can help them, and there could be a belief that prevents them from an outside coaching because, well, you don't work in our industry or you don't work in our company, how can you coach? If they have that belief system that it doesn't work, then that's exactly what they're going to take out of it. They're going to take out of it doesn't work.
Right.
And so making sure that this person wants it, they're open, and there's some initial getting to build some trust with that coach. So in this episode of about coaching, just like, what's the reason for coaching and what's the compelling reason for having coaching? Like, you truly just want people to improve. Yes.
And
growth.
I think that if you recognize that telling is not training, if you just have the thought and it never reaches their ears, nothing's happening, nothing's changing. Ultimately, we want people to improve. And so as a leader, that's probably your biggest role, is coaching and developing people, not simply giving them the answer to everything.
Yes.
If you're looking for more resources as it relates to leadership or maybe even some coaching, we have links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss another episode.